Kenya is not the place to be an artist. I don't even Kenya. I just think this is the worst time to be an artist. The other day when I saw Sauti Sol saying, "Hey, UCG, we have reached a place we want to part our ways," and all that, I started asking myself, "Kwani ni mbaya na industry ya Kenya?" Like, what is actually wrong with our industry? I think for most people, maybe most Kenyans, Sauti Sol was supposed to be our saviors. It's supposed to be wanafaa kuwa wanatuokolea, but for various reasons we've seen them go up, and right now we can clearly see the decline. And so I was just asking myself, like, based on like just history of Kenyan music, like, is it actually viable to be an artist in Kenya? And like, can you actually earn a living? And not even earn a living, but earn a living well, and a living that won't really interfere with your values, your ideals, and all those things. So I was just wondering, if you look at, and if you just go and check socials, maze, most Kenyan artists, let me think of the big artists when you walikuwa hapo during my time. The likes of Kina Nameless, Kina Isa, Kina K-Rapt, who else? Kina Big Pin, Kina Mustafa, Kina Talia, Kina all those guys. Really, when we were coming up, they were kind of the it guys. They were the guys who walikuwa wanachachisha maze. I remember that time I was a toddler, but still tulikuwa tuna ban hizo ma CD. Tukitoka chuo, we make sure we are up to date maze na mziki za Kenya. And like, fast forward into 2023, most of the artists who are kind of really good, especially if you think of the 2000 era where Kenyan music was really thriving, like, those guys are either struggling.
Nilianza mjengo 1 year ago, baada ile pesa kupotea, yaani pesa ya muziki kupotea na pesa ambayo nilikuwa namshughulikia mama kupungua.
But for the most part, most of them were not really able to transition. Of course, there are two reasons for this. First of all, I think for most of those guys, Kina Nameless, none of them really owned their music, and none of them owned their masters. So it became really easy for them to be finessed. And I think I saw an interview somewhere where Nameless was just talking about how in the beginning when they were hitting it, he was just excited that he's being paid 5K to go perform.
We want you in that gig, yeah? But you don't get paid. It's for good exposure.
Hey, no problem.
The question I was asking myself is, like, what's the point? If you look at the data, as beshte yangu fulani usema, it's clear that there's a very low success rate for artists in Kenya. And that should be one of the reasons why I think, actually, if you're being very reasonable with yourself, you shouldn't pursue music as your main career, because at the end of the day, locally, it goes to show our biggest artists are Sauti Sol, and I mean, divisive, but I think they're big, but they're just okay. Like, they didn't really, as I read somewhere, someone was saying, Sauti Sol, if you take Sauti Sol to Nigeria with their numbers and all they've done, they don't think they even make top 10, And one thing I also needed to accept, when I started accepting as a Kenyan, is maybe in terms of music in Africa, we're just not the best. Maybe to go top 5, but we are definitely not the best. And if you look in this moment, I think ukiangalia 2000s, I was doing some research, and in the year 2000s, you were finding like people like Wahoo, Kina Nameless, they were getting awards because for some reason our music at that point was just banging. It was just nice. So, but if you look at it now, times have changed, right? I was looking at, especially nowadays, like the Chromes, the Smirnoffs, the Hunters, something. There's another beer called Hunters, and so many artists are actually have just been converted from artists to what I like to call digital billboards. Yeah. And by digital billboards, I mean, like, of course, you're so broke that the only thing that matters to you is catching that bag, yeah? But unfortunately, these corporates, especially guys like EABL, I don't know who else sells booze. I think EABL sells a lot of the booze. But these guys like EABL have seen there's an opportunity here where artists are, I don't know how much they're paid, maybe I'll ask. But it's so crazy that they've recruited so many artists to just sell alcohol.
Kunintroduce kwa Bailey's Delight. Ladha yake ni nzuri na bei yake ya 999 ni nafuu.
Mimi naipenda kwenye hot chocolate na mume wangu anaipenda kwenye kahawa.
Leo nasikia poa bana, sijui ni nini.
So I on a Sunday had to come through with the BYOB Golden Special, perfect serving, you know, life of the party.
Kenyan. What do I do that you're like, what is that?
You do when you're melting. When you're melting.
Yeah.
Ini ya nini?
Hii sasa, hapa hivyo chini ya pekele, kuna code fulani, SMS kwa itu.
We still are feeling very philanthropic, as you know. Bwana Sherehe, it's my birthday, I'm giving out everything.
How did this become this? Become this? Become this?
Boa, so jua kali hapa ni noma hivyo, chrome noma hivyo kama kawaida, au sio? Watu wangu, baadaye.
Brought to you by Tusker Light, and that's the drink of choice for today. Let's begin.
Why are you gay?
So hey guys, hii stuff ikaendesha. Sweden. Sawa. Simtamtumia tu pesa.
Salam alaikum. Alaikum assalam.
What you doing? Where you at? You got plans? Don't say that. I'm sipping malt in the room. I look too good to be alone. My house clean, my boom boom.
I never once asked you if loving me was something that ever crossed your brain. Me sitawai.
So as I was saying, Sauti Sol was selling Chrome. You can find sijui Juakali is selling what, Major is selling, Captain Morgan. I know a lot of underground or rather upcoming artists. I was seeing A-Rosh is selling sijui Smirnoff. A lot of people are selling Jilbies. Of course, Wakadinali, I'm seeing now they're doing stuff with Tusker. And so the big question for me was like, this is all well and good, but how has it happened that like almost all artists in Kenya, of course, if they're not selling a phone, they're selling alcohol. Oh, and if they're not selling alcohol, they're doing it even worse. They're selling betting.
22 bet. OG Nikali, 22 bet. You know what it is. Yeah. Niko zabe nimechill zimenirunda. Kuna bet nimekelendo ninangoja. Best thoughts kujihook na mabunda. Naona nikishika Brenda ama Honda. 22 bets muda nikukafunga. Bet bila bundle za kuomba. Ibet nika imejipa vile naiona. 22 bets wamecheza manze wametuma kitu.
And all these things. So a good example is someone like Calligraph. If it's not betting, again, it's just brands that, again, as they always say, like, you will not let your child use it, or you would not let someone you love use it. So I was also saying Calligraph does like stuff with Monster. Naelewa the perspective of most of these guys. You're trying to make a living, yeah? But at what cost is what I'm saying. And I think all of us remember the saying of, what did they say? Msanii ni kioo ya jamii. And now, unfortunately, the kioo is just selling all the wrong products to society. And I think that's another reason, as an artist, you shouldn't really think about doing it as a career, because at the end of the day, those are the only opportunities you have. So if I summarize, I think an artist has 3 opportunities. One, of course, doing gigs. And I really need to understand that gig nini. But when I was there, I know like artists get paid peanuts for these gigs. Like especially this ones where on this year Saturday at which lounge or which cafe, the two blunts, the 5 geckos, all those bougie cafes. Especially if you have a band, I mean 20K is useless money, yeah? But that's the first way you can make money. Second way is now, unfortunately, sponsorships and brand deals. And sponsorships and brand deals, I think, are great. The only problem is for Kenya, what I'm noticing is most artists are either dealing with betting brands alcohol brands. And what's the last one? It's not betting, it's not alcohol. What else? Betting, alcohol, and things like energy drinks. Yeah. And so, like, think of it. Think about this like an artist. Let's say you're just an indie artist. I don't think all artists drink and smoke and all about drugs and stuff. I think the artists who genuinely take their art seriously and take it like as a profession. But there are so few avenues for you to actually sustain your career without compromising on your ideals. So case in point, if I'm an artist and I'm looking at this brand and I'm like, wow, the only people I can partner with is either alcohol or betting. Apart from having a following, I think subconsciously I would start aligning my content to fit these brands.
Kuna wengine akiamuka asubuhi pombe, akiamuka asubuhi bangi.
So what do I mean? For example, there's a reason Tusker is partnering with Cardinali. There's a reason I don't know if it's still Tusker, Diageo, partnering with Major for Captain Morgan. There's a reason they're partnering with Calligraph for those betting apps and all that. And the main reason is, first of all, their music kind of aligns to Tusker's content. And secondly, I think they're well aware that these guys have influence on the ground. So whatever they do will trickle down to the ground. I don't think these corporates care. So, for example, we know EABL is owned by Diageo, if you didn't know. For them, it's all about sales. It's all about sales. There's no vibe, so what the Kenyan youth is doing, what's the future for the... It's all about sales, 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 sales. For most of these artists, if they were kind of making money from their music, so maybe in a ideal situation like abroad, touring, album sales, and ticket sales and things like that, I think subscribing to an alcohol brand is probably the last thing an artist would do, because at the end of the day, especially if you're not that kind of person who drinks every day, which again, I totally don't think Sauti Sol, wherever they are drinking Chrome right now as they are practicing for the album. And I don't think, like most of these guys, I don't think they actually... And at the end of the day, even if now you can imagine you're doing a partnership with Gilbey's and all these guys, literally means during the week you kind of have to either pretend that you're for brand placement on your page, to pretend either you're drinking, and apart from that, maybe even actually drink. Because I mean, what's the point of preparing a cocktail then you don't drink it, right? So I think as an artist, you kind of really need to meditate, man, and evaluate yourself. Especially for artists who are like going to clock 30 soon. I totally agree that like once you have that talent in you, like it can't go anywhere. But I think it can be really depressing, right? If you making music you love, doing every these things you love, but you're forced to align with brands that don't match your energy, just so that you can make a living. Like that's what's called, I guess it's called selling out. I guess everyone sells out. But I think as an artist, you just need to kind of look at what you're good at and find other ways to sustain yourself that won't compromise the values and your ideals in your music. Yeah. And I think for all artists, like real money is in the corporate. Yeah. Of course, it's the same corporates who are finessing you, but if you offer a tangible skill, so leave something like singing or leave like just your brand. So for example, if you're a singer, yes, you can sing and release music, but you can also songwrite for people. You can songwrite jingles. You can do types of work that really don't require you to align yourself to that particular brand. You're just doing some work. For sound guys, there's so many opportunities. There's like, if you're a producer, you can sell beats. You can do sound design. You can do scoring. You can do voiceover work. You can do going to the field and record and doing audio for animations and all that. And what I learned is, and especially if you're, most times artists, you know this, especially if you're pursuing art and you're from not so well off, like you probably had to fight your parents. You had to fight a few people to do your art. And worst case is you don't want to be in that situation where you're being told, see, I told you. And mziki. And again, you don't want to reach a point where you're turning 30 and the only skill you have is rapping or just singing. Like, so you need to have other skills that kind of encompass this main skill and allow you to, worst case, when the music is not thriving, you don't fall off. And that's what I did. Like for me now, slowly I started with audio. Then I ventured into video. And at least with the video, I was able to find a space where I can record people's podcasts, do a few corporate gigs. And I think it just gave me peace, man. Because I do want to do music, but even the way I consume music nowadays, like aina ile utamu, as Dr. Pepe Minamba used to say, there's no oomph. Looking forward, I was like, hey man, I do not want to be those examples. And that's why I'm making this video. I don't want any of you to be those examples, because most of these brands, the moment you will age and they will find new people too, they are not loyal to you. Maybe you are loyal to them, but they're not loyal to you, yeah? And so it's really, like, it takes courage, yeah? To be like, okay, I love this music, but to be honest, if you want to keep doing this music, you have to find something that will support the music. Because the moment you depend on your music to eat, there's a high chance, man, you'll be compromised, man. There's a high chance you'll take bad deals. There's a high chance you won't be paid because you're desperate. And when you're desperate, that's where exploitation comes in. And so I just want to, like, challenge most artists. If your career is just being sustained, especially by pushing these alcohol brands, then it's not sustainable, my guy. And then and one big thing that I'll talk about again is, if you're an artist, just remain an artist. Yeah. The moment an artist becomes an influencer is the moment their artistic side loses credibility, because now people start knowing you for other things apart from your music. And you'll reach and you never want to reach a situation where you being an influencer is bigger than you being an artist. And I think that is probably one of the reasons guys like Sauti Sol might have fallen off a bit. People tend to forget that social media, the way social media is designed, the reasons we loved artists a long time ago is because they're almost like characters to us, the way you have characters in a movie. Eh? And so what does this mean? This means basically you only knew enough about them. Just enough. So even if you think about what made you so excited about their music, is because that's the only thing you knew about them. But the moment you start knowing how this person eats breakfast, where they go, how they are driving, you kind of now start personalizing that relationship. And the moment, as Kenyans say, meshazoeana na mtu, like there's that lack of, what do you call it? Like there's that lack of, like, motivation to why this person is accessible. I can go on IG, see what he ate for breakfast, who is dating, all these stories, how he's recording his music. And I think that, so the more as an artist you're being more accessible in terms of influencing instead of just your art, slowly it starts devaluing your art. And the problem is, yes, definitely you can go back, but it's very hard. Because now people just see you as a salesman or something like that, and that's why I really think if you're a genuine artist, and more so for the upcoming artists, and for most guys I meet, always like younger producers, I'm always like, bro, producing is well and good and all that, and if you're the best at producing, you might get somewhere, but please try and build other skills around your art that can be able to empower you. Because, man, Kenya's industry is small and it's stale. It's stale. Like, the same people who've been in these joints performing for the last 5 years are the same guys. And it's even harder now because, especially, I don't know what happened to downtown music, but it's kind of uptown guys who are running the music in our industry right now. And maybe some few, wase downtown, wase mtaa, they're just isolated examples. There's no community. So, ukiangalia like Calligraph, there's no community around him. It's just was him and Doctor for some time, but there's no community. And by community, I mean like an ecosystem, competition. There's none. If you look at Wakadinali, again, no competition. If you look at all these drillers, they call themselves drillers. I mean, they're mid. There may be like 3 or 4 guys who are doing drill, and they're just okay. Like, they're not changing the world. And so, like, you kind of need to think critically about that, man. Like, in as far as your career is progressing, there are very low odds of making money uko mbele, especially if you're just singing or producing music. Because also artists are broke. So artists never buy beats. Producers can tell me, but artists never buy beats. They just say, hey, bro, we listen, we go together, we push. That's always the vibe. So in conclusion, I just want to tell you, not that you shouldn't be an artist, but don't just think of it as in such a simple manner. It's much more complicated. And the dynamics are so hard, ukumbele. And it's so easy to fall off. Especially now with social media where you can't just focus on your art and release, like you're constantly watching what people are doing. And now this TikTokification of music, where it's always about chasing hits. So the moment you release, you have to do a challenge. Then people dance, then it trends, then chicks have to dance on your song half naked for it to blow up. Like for me personally, I'm not interested in any of that, man. It's something Fela Kuti said.
Music is a spiritual thing. You don't play with music. If you play with music, you will die young. You see, because when the higher forces give you the gift of music, musicianship, it must be well used for the good of humanity. If you use it for your own self by deceiving people or doing this, you will die young. You see, and I've told people this many times.
You should never play with music. And music is a spiritual thing. And I think sounds a bit these chakra stories, but I totally agree with that. I think having these innate talents is something God-given if you believe in God, right? And so the moment you're not using it for good, I think it slowly consumes you. You don't know it, but it slowly consumes you. And so I just want to tell artists, like, think critically and find other way, especially if you don't want to be compromised. Like, you have your own values, you have your own ideals. Most of these brands will just compromise you. Because at the end of the day, yes, you're trying to sell your art, them they're trying to sell a product. And you're too broke to say no. So jipange Buddha, organize yourself and make sure you just build other skills around that. If you agree or disagree, comment pale chini. But it was nice talking to you guys. Cheers.
And the sauce when they call me Pep Tangwena. And the sauce when they call me Pep Tangwena. And the sauce when they call me Pep Tangwena.